The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are speakers plus authors informing the audience. They do not reflect or represent views and opinions held by this podcaster. Due to the nature of broadcasting this podcast, it may contain a copyrighted entity of a person. This podcaster does not own any rights to this music and their content. This podcaster cannot be held accountable for any copyrighted content. This channel is a messenger and sharer of information and strives to verify, but not warrant, the accuracy of copyrights or completeness of the information. If there is a complaint about something, whether the content is being used incorrectly, please contact the podcaster directly before making a copyright claim. Any infringement was not done on purpose and will be rectified to all parties' satisfaction.
All my friends know the low rider. The low rider is a little higher.
Is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Next Chapter of Sports with your host, Diogui, along with Paquito. Paquito, we miss you. Desde la distancia, papa, we miss you so much. Hopefully, you can be back as soon as possible, and we wish you the best of luck for sure with the work commitments and everything that you've done. Also, you guys, I wish Paquito was here because our next guest is going to be full of everything. We're going to talk about everything on here, you guys. So, before we get started, should I like to call it, we miss you, Paquito. Hopefully you can come back for another time o cuando puedas, pero aquí estamos al 100%, papá. Also, make sure you guys, if you guys have been tuning into this podcast for a while, be sure to follow us on Instagram at The Next Chapter of Sports. It's all lowercase and everything all together. So, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody else listening on this podcast, I have another guest for you guys today out of Chicago, home and city of everyone, even my own favorite, Chicago here. This guy, let me tell you, he's a great co-worker, as I like to call it, a great staff member, but he's no longer going to be at DePaul. We're going to miss him so much. But yeah, this guy, I met him around late winter quarter around last year, and man, oh man, this guy has been a true friend all the way. Have the same favorite sport, same everything, and man, I'm just glad to have him on here. So, and we call him King James for a reason. So, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody else listening, we have with us today James Stowell III. James, welcome on.
Thank you for having me, Augie. It's good to see you.
So, first things first, before we get started, how's your day today?
Pretty good. Just graduate applications. That's all. I just fill some stuff out. Hopefully, they get the forms in time so that way I can, actually attend on-campus classes for Sacred Heart University for my master's degree.
Hey, you heard that, folks? He's going to Sacred Heart University in Connecticut. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's in Fairfield, Connecticut, right by ESPN's headquarters in Bristol. Bristol's about, I think, like 13 minutes away.
Is one of your goals going to be like work for ESPN someday, I guess, afterwards?
Oh, definitely as like a play-by-play commentator, whether it be like the NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, if they continue that coverage, or even MLS one day if MLS ever like gets that huge spike in popularity enough to get the jump to ESPN. Because right now I think they're on Apple TV, I believe, as of this point.
Guys, you can always watch MLS Season Pass on Apple TV, and that's where actually one of my idols works there, along with his partner. I actually had his partner on a few episodes ago, entonces I just want to give a huge shout out to el profe Jesús Bracamontes. Profe, si está viendo este episodio, muchísimas gracias. Y queremos que venga junto con Pablo. So these two, James, long story short, is that I grew up watching this idol. His name was Pablo. He used to work for Univision back like 20 plus years ago, along with his partner, Jesus Bracamontes, and they now work for Apple TV. Have you ever had like those moments where you want to like to meet your idol and then you had seen them in a way?
Yeah, in a way I met Patrick Kane once. Granted, it was at an autographing event, but I got to meet Patrick Kane, quite possibly the greatest North American born, or at the very least, American born hockey player in NHL history. He won the Blackhawks 3 cups, and now he's looking for another cup all across the league. He went to the Rangers after we traded him away, and now I believe he's with Detroit with the Red Wings. But yeah, I got to meet him at an autographing event. It was great.
Isn't always that rivalry between like the Hawks and the Red Wings kind of?
There was, oh yeah, no, they were an original 16, but at one point these two teams shared the Western Conference, but then the Red Wings moved to the Eastern Conference. But geographically, it made much more sense for them to be in the East than the West. They've been both been around since the inception of the NHL as we know it. Started with the Blackhawks, the Red Wings, the Montreal Canadiens, the Maple Leafs of Toronto, New York Rangers, and the Boston Bruins. So they've had that rivalry for a long time, but it's kind of waned down. Like in my opinion, the biggest rivalries of the Blackhawks, the biggest one in my opinion would be the Blues. Chicago and St. Louis. Those teams hate each other. And technically, the Blackhawks are the only reason why St. Louis has a team, at least to start off with, because I believe the original owner of the Blackhawks, he owned a stadium in St. Louis, and he gave the team that stadium to use because they wanted to play in St. Louis. Although at one point the Blues nearly went to Saskatchewan, which is in like the middle of somewhere in Canada. I'd say that's the biggest rivalry for the Blackhawks, and then after that, I mean, it's kind of, it could be the Predators because they're always an up and coming Western Conference team. It's not the Wild because that was always a one-sided beatdown in the playoffs. Unfortunately for Minnesota Wild fans, there is one at the station. I'd say the Blues is the top rival. At one point, it probably was the Red Wings, but that was when I was really young, even before the Blackhawks dynasty run.
Hey, I just remember that dynasty run so bad, like 2010, 2013, 2015, and then it all died down. I was like, I think there was like some sort of like coercion, if I'm not mistaken, or something happened along those lines that, the dynasty just fell apart.
Combination hit their plateau, and then the rest of the Western Conference just catched up.
Before moving on to your broadcasting career, James, I just want to focus on your beginnings. So, what was it like growing up in like your first journey in like academia and also entry into like sports broadcasting?
Of course. So it started off in high school. Like early on, they were like preparing me, like, "Oh, you got to find what you want to do for a career." I'm like, "I don't want to I don't want to be a carpenter like my dad. I don't want to work in the medical field, no matter how lucrative that would be for me. Like that would make more money, and I could retire probably much earlier than anyone else could, unless I was a lawyer. But I don't want to be a lawyer. I don't want to be stuck in courtrooms a lot. That's no shot taken at any lawyers who listen to your show. I love sports. I was like, I want to work in sports. The only way I can think of, and I always grew up playing the old NBA 2K games and the at least the old the way it is now. Like 2K15 and 16 are considered old now. They're considered antiquated by some circles, but they're still some of the best basketball games ever made. And then, of course, like Madden, old Madden before it became fuel of microtransactions and glorified gambling for Ultimate Team players, if you will. Those games really sparked my peak. They really sparked my interest for sports commentary, and then I broke into it. And then in high school, I started calling games for our varsity men's basketball team. It took a while. At first, I started off. You got to work your way up to the booth. I started off either working as a cameraman, just like filming it from like a weird offshoot corner of of our gym, or I would be in the audio room, just making sure the commentators' microphones sound good. And then eventually I would work my way to the booth. And that booth was in a very cramped room that had a hole in the ceiling to the roof and no air conditioning. So it was incredibly hot in there. And I always wore suits. So you can imagine how unbearable that can be at times. That's really sparked my interest. And then I went to college. I applied for a lot of places. I applied to Northwestern. I didn't hear back from them. I didn't even get waitlisted, unfortunately. I applied to a lot of Big East schools. I applied to Marquette, Butler, and DePaul. I never got to visit Marquette. Kind of wish I did, but I don't regret it not going. Visited Butler and DePaul. Butler is in nearby Indiana. It's nearby Indianapolis, but it's in a more rural section of the state. But then again, most of Indiana is rural, with the exception of Indianapolis, which is like way down in the middle. And DePaul, they didn't have a broadcasting program for a bachelor's, but they had sports communications, and they said like this could be good for you. So I'm like, okay, I'll take a jab at it. I liked what I saw from DePaul, and then immediately once I got here, I heard about, like, I was taking a class, and what the professor told me about the radio station, which at the time was called Radio DePaul Sports, and I applied to join. Got my first collegiate basketball, like men's basketball gigs between the DePaul Blue Demons and a lot of non-conference opponents. I believe it was the Southern Kentucky Norse. I remember it was one of the Kentucky colleges, but they're called the Norse. At the time, they had Javon Freeman Liberty, who's now with the Windy City Bulls, played briefly with the Toronto Raptors for a while. Nick Ongenda, who's actually in like the summer league team for, I believe, Brooklyn. I believe he's with the Brooklyn Nets right now for their summer league roster. And David Jones, who now I believe is with the Hawks training, like summer camp roster. Like there was a lot of talented players on the team, and that was when Tony Stubblefield was a rookie head coach back when a lot of people had a lot of high hopes for him before. Unfortunately, no one knew what would happen 2 years later. But yeah, that's where I got started, and it's been a wonderful journey ever since.
Most people, when it comes to like students, and I often refer myself to it because I want to include like students and like helping out the next generation, of course, they can expect so much from like these big schools like Butler, DePaul, Marquette, and also like St. Xavier, I believe, also as well.
Yeah, there's Saint Xavier, and then of course Xavier University in Cincinnati.
Like focusing more on the Paul perspective, like leading into that phase at the Paul, like what transpired you to choose the Paul and major just in a competitive field like journalism or perhaps even sports communication?
I kind of wanted to stay close to home, and being from Chicago, they still love to tout their connections with all the local sports teams, from the Cubs and Sox of the MLB, the Blackhawks, Bulls, and Bears of their respective leagues. Even independent, even smaller tier baseball leagues like the Chicago Dogs out in Rosemont or the Schaumburg Boomers out in Schaumburg. They have all these connections, and they even have marketing agency connections like Paragon Marketing Group. They're really big downtown. They're a good part. Like they've done a lot of great projects in the past. I got to visit their offices. It was a great time, but like mainly the connections that could get me somewhere, because connections are, I wish I started connecting in freshman year. Instead, I kind of waited until like end of sophomore, early junior year to really start making connections. Yeah, mainly what DePaul was connected to, and also Big East. I mean, you're in the same conference as UConn, St. John's, Georgetown. You're in one of the best conferences in all of Power Five basketball, and I don't care when if people say the Big East isn't power. It's like no, it's not Power Five. Yes, it is. Till the Pac-12 comes back, it's Power Five. Then it could be Power Six once the Pac-12 makes its resurgence, which they're on track to do so. But like, and DePaul unfortunately hasn't always had the best of luck with men's basketball. But I didn't go to be at like the best school for like sport, like their basketball team, because I was like, I want something that can get me somewhere, and worked out perfectly for DePaul and me.
That's pretty cool for sure. And speaking of terms of like your broadcasting career and other successful roles that you had, that's what I'm saying. Like I'm telling people, like this man, you guys, he's an aspiring sports announcer. If you haven't heard his calls, you should definitely listen to him when you can. So for quite some time and throughout your broadcasting career, you've done play-by-play and color commentary for DePaul specifically, like with men's and women's basketball, softball,
Yep.
soccer, and so forth. So how do you prepare? How does someone prepare for those instances? Because it may seem like hard work, but like there has to be like preparation behind it.
Oh, of course, yeah, there's always preparation. I wish I did this earlier. Like freshman and sophomore year, I would just kind of use the sheets they gave me for the names. Like the names, it was easy for like once you hear them enough, you can get them right and everything. And just like write a few scribble notes, some notes down. Mainly this year, especially, I started like doing more for the preparation, like getting actual. I wish I had the paper I could show you and your audience. I could show like my little name sheets. It's like you give the entire roster for both teams. Each team gets one sheet. I'm using basketball specifically, but you can use that for other sports. But depending on what sport it is, like soccer or baseball, they might have bigger. They may have much bigger rosters, and you may need more than one sheet, like one page for each team. So I would put every single player's name for the DePaul players and their opponents on their own sheets, and I would make sure to get some general information, like their height, their physical attributes. Obviously, for women's basketball, you do not put their weight down. Like that's common sense. You don't do that. I put down information like what grade year they are, what's their height, like what's their number, what are some of the how are their averages, their points per game, rebounds, assists per game, their shooting percentages from the line, from mid range, beyond the arc. I got that down too. And then also some trends with them, like how do they perform in the last game, or like some fun facts about them, like where are they from, where did they attend before DePaul. And then at the bottom, I get like the coaching stat. You put the coaching staff, like Chris Holtman, Jack Owens, Brian Mullins, Michael Bailey, the entire coaching staff, put them down. Put like a little brief snippet about like their coaching career, like where have they been, like anything notable about them, and then put like the advanced stats, like, oh, this team is like number 10 in the nation in rebounds per game, or number 10 in the nation in opposing field goal percentage. Like, put that stuff down on the side, and then at the bottom you put like their last score. DePaul beat Butler 97-96, something like that. Like, they won that game, and like the leading score for that game. And then on the other side, if you can, it's a little hard to find the history, but how many times these teams have faced, but try to find like what match is like, is this like their 56th matchup of all time? What was the score in the last matchup between these two teams? Unless it was the same season, then you'll already have it. And just do it for both sheets. And then also make sure you get the name pronunciations. That is probably one of the most difficult things, and sometimes because there sometimes when you have players that are from across the globe, very difficult to say their names. Sometimes now, for the most part, the colleges will actually have their pronunciations on the media guide or on their website. Like, okay, you can write this down and then just do some practices. Other times they won't have that, and you have to go on a website to like type in their name. What country are they from? Like, there was this one player from Mercyhurst, which is in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania. They faced off against DePaul men's soccer. They had a player from Guam and Guadalajara. They did not give me a pronunciation, so I had to go onto that website, type their name out, what country they came from, like, or what language they spoke. So I had to go look up what is the like either official language or the mainly used language in the country that they're from, and then try for my life to say their name correctly. It's not like some commentators out there. There's not a lot that do this because for good reason. They don't really that kind of just butcher the names. They don't care. No, you got to make sure you at least try to say it correctly. No one's gonna fault you if you say it wrong if you're putting in an effort to either A, fix your mistake, or B, try to sound as good as possible. That really goes into all the preparation. It's a lot. It can take anywhere from an hour if it's a small sport, if it's like a small roster sport like volleyball, or it could take hours upon hours if it's a large roster, because you need every single player in case they go into a game.
That's also interesting because I remember one time that we were at the station and you were like complaining about like
Uh,
mispronunciation, and
that was Mercier. That was Mercier's.
that
That was
was
the one. I
Mercer.
was very confused. I'm like, how does this school from Pennsylvania get players from Guadalajara, part of Central Europe, other part, and then other parts of like Central Europe and Australia? Like, where do you get these people? How do you find them? Like, how many scouts do you have, and where on the world are you going that you find all these players? Like, it was like I severely underestimate the scouting departments of collegiate soccer teams. It was a very perplexing time, and I can't remember who was calling that game with me. I can't remember. I don't think it was you. I think it was I forgot who it was, but we were both kind of getting tongue tied trying to figure out how to say their names correctly or as close to correctly as possible.
Yeah, because when it comes to like like pronunciating like the names, I understand like from that perspective. But at the same time, it's like if there's like a name that you don't know how to pronounce and they don't give you the pronunciation, where do you go from here? Obviously, you got to keep the show going, but it's like, where do you go from here?
Sometimes you can make those adjustments. Like, I used to do this. Don't acknowledge that you messed up sometimes, like, because they'll notice. Just try to get past it and try to just get better from there. I wish I did this more, but the problem is I kept getting so sidetracked by either other news going on or we were so close to the start of the game. Try to ask staff members of the other team, like, how do you say these names? You don't go asking the coach. Try asking like the student managers if you can, or if the player isn't doing anything, maybe try your luck and see like, hey, I'm calling the game for so and so. I just want to make sure I say your name correctly. How do you pronounce it? And do as best as you can from there.
Because I do know like there's some names like what is it like Japanese and then Chinese and then like other like places that have like it's like that little asterisk or like where like the C is or maybe like Perisic for example like Ivan Perisic or even like a difficult name like Lancaster or something like that like it gets so confusing like trying to figure out how to pronounce these names but you don't want to get it wrong because you don't want to sound like
You,
unprofessional.
you, you don't want to sound unprofessional, but again, no one's gonna fault you if you don't know how to say it correctly as long as you're trying to get better at it. Yeah, there are parts of the world, like even Central Europe, like Eastern Europe, that Slovenia, Serbia, like they have names that are very difficult to pronounce. Even for professional credentialed like reporters, when asking questions, sometimes they get a little tongue-tied. The players at least can see you're showing effort by trying to get it right. At least put in the effort to try to make sure you say it correctly, or at least try to make sure you know how to say it correctly.
That's the advice, folks. If you ever want to get into broadcasting, that's the advice for sure.
Well, that and also do is meant do probably the biggest advice I can ever give is since well I guess we'll segue into that portion of it. Wait, this isn't my show. This is your show.
Of
Uh,
course. But we can make it King James' show, just like I stole this microphone.
yeah, that was my show at DePaul. I'm taking that name by the way to Sacred Art. That's my name.
That's your name
Uh,
all the way.
two biggest pieces of advice I can give to people who want to do broadcasting. One, get as many reps as you can. Doesn't matter where. Doesn't even matter if you're just watching yourself play 2K and you just turn off the commentators. Try to do it yourself as much as you can so you can get better at it. So you can sound more confident. So you don't sound so shaken up on air. Two, make connections as much as possible. Like make friends, like maybe not friends, maybe make connections. Wherever you work at or whoever you cover for, try to introduce yourself to people. Get your name out there. Oh, and a bit of a 2.5, always save your audio work. You call games and it's recorded somewhere, like the archive player that we have at the radio station, go in there, save your work, so that way you can turn it into a demo reel later. Because I could go on and on about how I've been taught to make a good demo reel. That doesn't look perfect, but I'm cheap, unfortunately. I can't afford Adobe Premiere and make my thing like ultra 8K quality. I can't do that. I'm not rich. I'm not able to afford pricey Adobe Creative Cloud subscription. I can't afford that.
Seems fair. That's the advice, you guys. If you want to get into broadcasting, King James right here got you all covered.
I mean, yeah, and if any of your viewers that actually are trying to become commentators, they watch your show and they want to connect with me, I'm more than welcome to give any advice that I can. Or by coincidence I reach out to someone who listens to your show and we just talk. Like that'd be funny. Like, oh, I heard about you through this guy over here.
And that's what it is, and that's what it is, and we keep it going. So your show, I Stole This Microphone, which that's your show, of course. That's the name that you're gonna keep going, of course, with Sacred Heart. Is there like another moment, like now speaking in terms of like your radio show, like was there like a moment, either like in the mic on the radio show or even like on a live call, where you happened to like say or even do something wrong, but you had to adapt very quickly? Like for example, like maybe swearing on a live call or even swearing on air an accident? How did you handle that?
I've not cursed like on for a game. I haven't done that since high school by accident. That was a slip of tongue. And then and my boss would just tell me well, he wouldn't even tell me anything. He would just write us up a whiteboard with my saying, "Watch your language." And that was in high school. So I'm like, don't do that. On air, it's kind of you know me. Like I get a little heated sometimes on the show. We all do. And there are times where it just like one word slips out, and I just either a try to like I either be like push past it, don't acknowledge it. But if someone catches me on, I'm like my apologies, slip of tongue, stuff like that, which mainly happens because of certain people on my show. It's happened, but more than often than not, just try to push past it. Don't acknowledge it because a lot of times the listeners because it's radio will be doing multitasking things, so they might not even hear you do it. So you might just be able to push past it and they won't even know. But if you acknowledge it, then they're gonna know. You at some point you do have to apologize, saying I'm sorry, like sorry if I butchered this, something like that, and then just move on. That's only if you do it egregiously enough.
Words of advice from King James. That's all you need, you guys. As a graduate from DePaul, and I would have to say this, DePaul is one of the best schools. Of course, you have Marquette, these other biggie schools as well, but from DePaul and as an actual graduate that's been there for 4 entire years. Can you imagine that, you guys? This man, 4 entire years at the station at DePaul is amazing. It's great, and I love that for sure. So you're going for a master's, of course, at Sacred Heart University in Fairfield, Connecticut. Definitely a great school. That's like literally close by to ESPN headquarters, like a few minutes away or so.
About I think 13 minutes because Bristol isn't that far away from Fairfield, at least by car. I don't have a car up there
At
though.
least by car. So now, as an actual graduate and now going for a grad degree, which definitely kudos to you. What is like the ultimate goal? And I think you said this already earlier, but like, what's like the ultimate goal or dream job that you want to get afterwards?
Dream job, call games for the Chicago Bulls. That's my dream job right there. I've done mostly basketball my entire time ever broadcasting. I've called softball for about a couple years at the Paul. I called soccer for 1 year. So like that's the main goal. That's the dream. But the goal is to call the games in like the professional leagues. That's the goal. But the dream for the Bulls.
Radio DePaul Sports and Entertainment, because before I remember it used to be Radio DePaul Sports,
Yep.
you became the first person ever in history to win a three-peat before LeBron, to win the most passionate member of
Yeah.
the station.
I don't know if anyone three-peated that award before me, but I know at least I did got a three-peat before LeBron did. But yeah, no, it's not hard to have passion, but the greatest people can turn their passion and spin it into a story, if you will. Like the greatest commentators can use emotion within reason. You can't be screaming at the top of your lungs every single second. They know how to turn those critical moments in the games into pure cinema. They know how to do that.
Like I said, the first three-peat before LeBron, and even before the Chiefs as well. They only went back to back, but they couldn't even get a three-peat. So that's why I'm saying I feel like this man, you guys, like if you ever need a three-peat, just go to James because this guy has got a three-peat before anyone else has done it in history. Moving on to the to episode 32 of this podcast. Obviously, we just want to say thank you to James Stowell III, our very own King James, for coming on to this episode. One of the things that I wanted to talk to James about is his two teams. He has two teams, is Inter and Napoli. That they're actually the top two of La Serie A for this past 24-25 season. James, how do you feel about your teams being the top two?
For once in a sporting league, I can say my teams are the best of the best for once. And like you know the whole story of why I love Napoli and Inter. Like in Napoli, I have family over there in Naples. I like my family comes from Naples, Italy. At least part of my mom's family comes from there. So I have ties over there immediately. And also Maradona was one of my favorite players. Not my most favorite. That's Lionel Messi for obvious reasons. But Inter, I got to watch a game in person in Italy when I was like five at the San Siro. Inter, I think it was against AC, and I liked the way Inter's jerseys looked. And I was like, that's my other team. That's the only football league I'll ever have two teams in the same division.
I don't even want to bring this up because I know this will get you upset about Inter this past like what
Yeah, Champions League.
in Champions League. Like I didn't even want to bring it up because a certain someone had to jinx it all, if you know what I mean.
This is an inside information.
This is like very, very inside information, very confidential. I'm not gonna say it, but if you guys know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about for sure. James, let me ask you, speaking of soccer world, we have the World Cup next year, dude. We
Yep.
literally have the World Cup next year. Who are your favorites to win the World Cup?
That's a tough one right there. That is a very tough one because whenever I looked it up this morning, like what the like who's in right now, it only shows as far back as June 12th. It doesn't show like all the teams. Like it shows a lot of teams. Like one, I don't think any of the host teams are winning. Let's be frank. I don't think the US is gonna win. We haven't done like our greatest moments were 1930 in the early 2000s. Mexico, I don't think they're winning. Canada, I definitely don't think they're winning. I don't think Argentina is gonna win again like they did in the last World Cup, but they're still a contender. As of June 12th, they were ranked as the like number one country in the FIFA rankings, so they definitely have a shot. Germany, I haven't kept tabs on in a while, but they're always usually a very good team, so I have to keep tabs on them. And of course, England, as much as the American with the English, the revolution, all that stuff. But no, the English you always have to watch out for in FIFA. Japan also is a nice team to look out for. Oh, their best performances were in like 2018, 2022 when they went the round of 16. They didn't really do so great last World Cup. I have no confidence in Brazil. Brazil will probably win one or two matches in the knockout rounds and then fall out again like they always do. Or if you're hosting Brazil, get bounced out by Germany pretty quickly.
I don't know, James. I feel like Mexico nowadays, because I understand like from Mexican fans and everything
Speaking of
like
which, I hate that handball. That was a handball.
that was a
That was a
handball. You think it
handball.
was a handball?
I looked at like three different angles. I thought that was a handball.
Here's the thing though with that. Like I was talking to Noe and not Noe, Noah, and I was talking to someone else about it. Like I had many questions and many people asking me, was that a handball? Necessarily it's not because he Sanchez doesn't do it intentionally, but then again I see it from the other perspective. It's like he has his full on hand right there and I can see it why it's a handball. It's a very controversial play for
I'm
sure.
about to, s- yeah, I'm about to say intention. Like I understand, like no intention, but dude, his hand touched it. I was never taught growing up playing soccer that like, oh, if you don't have intention to hit it with your hands, you can let it hit your hands. What? No. Handball is a handball. Unless of course unless you're like like you're running back towards the goal and the ball just happens to be coming towards you, you don't even see it coming and it hits your hand like that I can give a trade off. But you see the ball and it hits your hand. Like, I'm sorry. That should have been handball.
Yeah, many people were saying that it was a handball. Many people were saying it wasn't intentional. Like, as someone that has breathed and that has knew soccer for many, well, I'm not that old, tampoco, but I was gonna say I'm not that old. I'm like done soccer. Like I've done everything, like referee, coach, player, played in every single position and stuff. But I can tell you, like I see it from both sides. I'm more of a neutral person. So on one side you have handball, which clearly like his full on hand is touching the esférico, the ball. And then on the other side you have like it's not intentional because he's falling off the ground. So if I had to decide on it, I base it off on facts and I base it off on like what other refs would say is like it's more so intentional because Sanchez is pretty much falling off. But then again, I understand like from the other perspective that it's like his full on hand is touching the full on ball inside the penalty box. That could be a clear penalty, but then again, I don't know because it's kind of confusing nowadays because when I was talking to Noah, and shout out to Noah for sure, how do you know it's a penalty now? Because like rules keep changing every single season now, and I'm like, well, where do we go from here? How do we determine if it's a penalty?
Yeah, like, it's confusing. The U.S. lost the Gold Cup. Should have been ours, but oh well. It's the end of that. Now on to the World Cup, where we have a few teams. I believe it's their first ever appearance. Jordan and Uzbekistan. I want to watch them just because it's their debut.
And not only that, this is going to be the first ever World Cup that we went from 32 teams to 48 teams, which is insane. You're going to have 104 games total with 48 teams now. It's definitely going to be interesting. But going back a little bit with the Mexican squad, I don't know, James. I feel like the Mexican squad do have that tools. They do have the tools to create like a great like World Cup looking squad that would probably win the title. I even told Francisco, shout out to Francisco, and I even told people even though they don't believe me because they think that I'm the quote unquote expert, but I do see Mexico going all the way into the final of that World Cup and facing against Portugal. I did say Portugal is going to win it 2-1 because of Diogo Jota, but who knows? I could be wrong.
I don't remember last time a team from the CONCACF acronym jumble CONCACAF from like North America, Central America, and teams from the Caribbean. But I don't remember the last time a team from that sector of the world won the World Cup. Wasn't us. Wasn't Canada. And Mexico. Like their previous best performances in 1980s, like their best all-time performances, 86 and 1970. I just don't think a team from that side of the world is gonna win when you have unfortunately, all the European juggernauts, when you have all the Asian juggernauts over there as well, and then even teams from Africa and of course South America. You got Argentina, you got Brazil. Ecuador is a pretty good team over there too.
We have to keep in mind as well, like that these are host nations here. Well, and I understand, like I understand. I see. I mean, for me, I see like the U.S. going all past the group stage, but it all depends on who they face in the knockout rounds. And with Canada, you can't leave behind Canada because Canada is a really good squad. But Mexico, like I said, I feel like there's more so on the fact that it's U.S. Mexico instead of Canada for this because they're gonna be like a whole bunch of fans rooting for these two hosts for sure. But who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, we will see indeed.
Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, quickly with the NBA. The NBA Finals. OKC won it 4-3 in the series. First ever 7 games since 2016 when LeBron and the Cavs did the 3-1 comeback. Majestic comeback for sure. All I can say is SGA and okay, well, before I even get to SGA, I feel like Halliburton and Indy should have won that game.
I feel like they could have won it, but unfortunately, his Achilles tear kind of stalled the momentum, and now he's not playing next year. That's a whole year likely without Jason Tatum and Halliburton. The Eastern Conference might flip on its head again. I don't even know if Cleveland will be number one again.
But Cleveland though, what even happened to Cleveland though? Like you were like number one seed.
They got defeated in 5 games by the Pacers, the giant killer of the NBA. I don't know how they'll perform without Halliburton, but Siakam was a great player, and they have a great core.
See, I feel like Indy should have won it now that I think about it. Indy should have won it, and then OKC would have won it next season. But still, like, that was a great matchup if you really think about it.
Oh, yeah, no, there's people who criticize this finals. I'm like, this is one of the best we've had in years, and people like the lack of like all the parity. They want dynasties. Like you said a couple years ago, you didn't want dynasties. That you're tired of the Cavs and Warriors so much. Now you're complaining because it's all different teams. It's not you wouldn't complain about the parity if you were winning. If you were one of those teams in those 7 years they won, you wouldn't complain about the parity. You might complain a little bit because, like, oh, we can't win anymore. The way the NBA's structure is, there will be no dynasties because dynasties cannot afford. The dynasties of the old would never be able to afford the players today, and even presumed dynasties can't afford the players because of the vaunted second tax apron, which would cripple a team financially if they went over it. Hence why now it's about not just about winning; it's about staying below that apron.
But not even that. Like I even saw it like somewhere around. I think what was it like CBS Sports that said it, or someone said this that this was like what the first time like what like few seasons that every I think it was like 8 seasons where it
Seven
started
seasons.
somewhere around the lines like with 8 seasons, 8 different champions if I'm not mistaken. So I mean you have that, but at the same time like where do you go from here if you're the NBA?
Honestly, keep the parody going. It keeps things fresh, keeps things interesting.
This was definitely a great series. Again, since 2016, that it hasn't gone to like 7 games in like in a while. But yeah, pretty much Achilles injury for Tyrese Halliburton. Dang. Like I said, Indiana should have won it because I had that feeling that Indiana should have won it after like what 25 years going not
It
going
was
to the
after
finals.
the last time. That was only their second finals appearance ever in their franchise's history, and
Why
I'm hoping
can't you
that's
just
not the
give it?
last time.
Why can't you just give it to Indiana?
Fate is a cruel being. OKC wins their first title. SGA and Chet Holmgren are basically locked in for the next several years together.
And also, this is like the first championship that since the move, if I'm not mistaken, because it wasn't it like Seattle before.
Yeah, they were the Seattle Supersonics, and likely that team will come back because the NBA is looking to expand. Some reports are saying as early as this coming season, or next season, or the season after this coming season. Seattle is the top place to get a new team. So they'll likely get the Supersonics back. They'll take back the history of their team, which includes that title was won in Seattle in like I think the 70s, I believe, and like 79, I believe. All their history pre-move to OKC is gone. And I think that also includes Kevin Durant's rookie of the year because he was one of the last Supersonics players.
Could have had a championship beforehand. That's all I'm saying. Ladies and gentlemen, and everybody else listening, a great episode with King James III, of course. Thank you for being on here for sure. This is our final segment, you guys. And as always, as you know, it's the final reflection where we inspire, motivate, and do a little tech talk for all of you next upcoming generations that are coming forward and are actually stepping forward as well. We're just going to leave the mark, as I like to call it. But hey, it's your turn now, as they like to call it. This is the quote of the day that I will give it to you. Today, you are you. That is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you by Dr. Seuss. I will say that again. Today, you are you. That is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you. And that's by Dr. Seuss. If you haven't read those Dr. Seuss books ever since you were a kid, I don't know what to tell you. Honestly, no matter
Go
what
read them.
happens and no matter what occurs, the next chapter of sports, you have to be truer to be true. And you have to be you or a youer than you.
Oh, this is my spot now. Oh,
This is
well.
this is
Thank you
James's
for
spot
having me.
now.
My spot. Okay. Thank you again, Augie, for having me here. Let me know if you ever want me back on again. If anything happens in the world of sports, but I'll give you a quote from Walter Payton. If you're good at something, you'll tell everyone about it. If you're great at something, people will tell you. It's a reminder to be humble. It's like to separate the good from the great. If you want to be great, first of all, like don't sing your own praises. Like have confidence in yourself, but don't be brash. Don't brag about it. It's fine to highlight your achievements, but do it in a way that's like you're still being humble. You're being grounded in a way.
That is James's quote. I feel like the final reflection, you guys, it's gotta instead of final reflection, it should be a reflection from James Stowell III. That's what I think. Well, everybody, that is all that we have for today. Thank you guys so much. Muchísimas gracias a mis hermanos latinos, como ya lo saben perfectamente. This guy is learning Spanish bit by bit. Isn't that right, James?
Yes. On Duolingo, el español es muy difícil y muy interesante.
His Spanish is good, you guys. I'm telling you as of right now. So, muchísimas gracias a mis hermanos latinos. Ya lo saben perfectamente que el próximo capítulo de deportes aquí seguiremos para siempre. Así que thank you so much, you guys. And remember that the next chapter of sports will live on today, tomorrow, and forever. Y recuerden que el próximo capítulo de deportes seguirá hoy, mañana y siempre. Thank you so much, King James, for coming on. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode 32 of this amazing podcast. And we will see you guys till next time.